The year is 1896, and the sound of a heavy oak door slamming shut echoes through the marble hallway of a prestigious Berlin hospital. It is a sound Dr. Martin Couney has heard a dozen times before, but today it rings with the finality of a death sentence. In his hands, he clutches a sheaf of papers, blueprints, mortality statistics, and a desperate plea for funding. They're trembling, not from the cold of the German winter, but from a rage that threatens to consume him. Behind that closed door, the most respected medical minds of the 19th century have just delivered their verdict on his life's work. They called it unnecessary. They called it unproven. But the word that stings the most, the word that hangs in the air like toxic smoke, is the one they used for his patients: weaklings. At the turn of the century, a premature baby is not considered a patient. They are considered a mistake of nature. The medical protocol is brutal in its simplicity. Wrap them in blankets, place them in a corner, and wait for them to die. It is a passive eugenics, a silent agreement that those who cannot fight for their first breath do not deserve a second one. Martin Couney, a man whose medical credentials are as murky as the Thames, but whose conviction is harder than steel, refuses to accept this. He possesses a technology that could change everything: the incubator. It is a glass and steel womb, heated by warm water, capable of regulating the temperature of a 2-pound infant. But technology requires money, and money requires the approval of men who believe these babies are genetically inferior. Couney walks out into the gray Berlin afternoon. The wind bites at his face. He has no hospital, no funding, and no allies. He thinks of the infants he saw in the charity ward that morning, their skin translucent, their chests barely moving, fading away while doctors debated the cost of coal. He needs a venue. He needs a way to force the world to look at what they are throwing away. His eyes catch a poster plastered on a brick wall. It screams in bold, garish colors about the Great Industrial Exposition, a fair, a place of machinery, beer gardens, and bearded ladies, a place where the public pays to be entertained, to be shocked, to be thrilled. A thought forms in his mind, an idea so grotesque, so ethically bankrupt, that he initially recoils from it. If the medical establishment won't pay to save these children, perhaps the public will pay to stare at them. He stands on the street corner, the noise of carriages and street vendors swirling around him. The decision he is about to make will brand him a monster. It will strip him of any hope of professional respectability. To put dying infants on display next to sword swallowers and two-headed calves is a violation of every oath a healer takes. But as the image of the cold charity ward returns to his mind, Couney realizes he has no choice. He straightens his coat. He isn't going back to the hospital board. He is going to the carnival. He will become the showman they accuse him of being, because if he has to sell their dignity to buy their lives, he will sell it all day long. The Infantorium is born not in a sterile clinic, but in the desperate quiet calculation of a man willing to play the villain, to be the savior. It is 1903. And the air smells of roasted peanuts, stale beer, and the salty rot of the Atlantic Ocean. Welcome to Coney Island. The noise is a physical weight, a cacophony of calliope music, screaming coaster riders, and the relentless patter of barkers shouting, "Step right up! Step right up!" In the center of this chaotic whirlwind, nestled between a sideshow featuring a wild man from Borneo and a stand selling fried clams, sits a pristine white building. Above the entrance, a sign painted in bold red letters announces, "All the world loves a baby." Martin Couney stands behind the glass partition, his white coat starched to perfection, a stark anomaly in a sea of grease paint and checkered suits. He watches the crowd file in. They clutch their 25-cent tickets, their faces a mixture of morbid curiosity and skepticism. They have come to see the freaks. They have come to see the weaklings. But once they cross the threshold, the carnival noise dies. The air here is filtered, scrubbed, and warm. A row of gleaming steel incubators lines the wall, each one housing a life hanging by a thread. The tension in the room is suffocating. Outside, the Brooklyn Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children is lobbying to have him shut down. They call him a predator, accusing him of exploiting the dying for profit. The eugenics movement writes editorials calling his work a waste of resources on defectives who will only pollute the gene pool. Every day is a battle against the authorities, the skeptics, and the elements. Tonight, the summer heat wave has turned New York into an oven. The power grid at Luna Park is flickering, strained by the thousands of light bulbs illuminating the rides. Inside the Infantorium, Cooney watches the temperature gauges with the intensity of a bomb disposal expert. If the power fails, the incubators cool. If the incubators cool, the babies die. It is that simple. The lights flicker. A collective gasp goes through the crowd of onlookers. Cooney doesn't flinch. He barks orders to his nurses, women who are not showgirls but highly trained professionals paid better than any hospital nurse in the country. They move with military precision, preparing hot water bottles, ready to become the human incubators if the machines fail. For a moment, the barrier between the spectacle and the medicine dissolves. A burly man in the audience, holding a bag of popcorn, presses his hand against the glass, his eyes locked on a tiny chest rising and falling. He isn't looking at a freak anymore. He is witnessing the terrifying fragility of life. Cooney sees the shift. He sees the moment the voyeurism turns into prayer. This is the tightrope he walks every single day. He is funding the most advanced neonatal intensive care unit in the world, with the quarters of people looking for a thrill. He endures the sneers of the real doctors uptown, knowing that here, amidst the magicians and the charlatans, he is performing the only magic that actually matters. He wipes a bead of sweat from his forehead, checks the thermometer one last time, and turns back to the crowd. "Observe," he says, his voice cutting through the silence. "They are fighting. Are you?" 40 years. For 40 years, the carnival lights buzzed, the roller coasters screamed, and martincouney stood guard over his glass boxes. But today, the Infantorium is quiet. The year is 1943. The world is consumed by a war that is tearing continents apart. But on the boardwalk of Coney Island, a smaller, quieter era is coming to an end. Dr. Couney is an old man now. His shoulders are stooped, his hair white, his fortune gone. He moves slowly through the exhibit, touching the cold metal of the empty incubators. The medical establishment has finally caught up. Cornell New York Hospital has just opened a dedicated station for premature infants. They have the funding, the technology, and the respectability that Couney never had. They have adopted his methods, his hygiene protocols, and his dietary strictures. They have taken his life's work and legitimized it, and in doing so, they have made him obsolete. There is no anger in him, only a profound, hollow silence. He is not being hailed as a pioneer, he is simply being forgotten. The show is over. He begins to dismantle the exhibit. He takes down the sign that promised live babies. He packs away the oversized clothes he used to dress the infants in to emphasize their tininess, a showman's trick to the very end. He has spent every dime he ever made on the care of these children. He has no pension, no savings, and no home to return to other than a small apartment. He is dying poor. As he locks the door for the last time, a young woman approaches him. She is holding the hand of a 5-year-old boy. She doesn't buy a ticket. She doesn't stare. She simply walks up to the old showman and introduces herself. She tells him a date from 20 years ago. She tells him that she was one of the weaklings. She was 2 pounds, blue, and discarded by the hospital. Her parents brought her here, to the boardwalk, in a shoebox. She introduces her son. Cooney looks at the woman, healthy and vibrant, and then at the boy. He realizes that this is his legacy. Not the papers in the medical journals, not the plaques on hospital walls, but this, the breath in their lungs. 6,500. That is the number. 6,500 human beings who are walking the earth, having children, building cities, and living lives because a fake doctor put them in a sideshow. As Cooney walks away from the boardwalk, leaving the ghosts of the carnival behind, the wind off the ocean feels different.
It no longer smells of desperation and popcorn. It smells of the future. He realizes that history may remember him as a charlatan, and the medical boards may erase his name, but the blood flowing through the veins of a generation is the only truth that matters. He played the villain, he took the money, he endured the mockery, and he won. He saved the world 1/4 at a time.